Hello, photographers, designers, and other creative freelancers. Welcome to Coaching for Creatives. I am Aura McKay, and I am your host for this conversation. And it's kind of ironic that I'm starting this conversation having just had to put on my IT professional hat and my troubleshooting hat. And now working on how do I get into my marketing hat or my content delivery hat. Thank you so much for joining me. So pop into the comments any questions or experiences that you have with wearing all the hats in your creative business. One of the things that I do in my business is I try to wear multiple hats at the same time. And sometimes that gets me in trouble, but sometimes it saves me time and effort at the same time. If you are a photographer, designer, or other creative, then you probably have the experience of feeling overwhelmed, confused, pulled in multiple directions, and like you are wearing way too many hats in your creative business. I hear this all the time from my clients. And so I wanted to bring this here to you in coaching for creatives so that you can feel less overwhelmed and know where to focus your time and energy for the maximum impact. I'm Laura McKay. I am the founder of Business of Creativity, and I am a business coach that helps photographers and designers make more money. And one of the ways that I do that is I help you to simplify your business, to simplify where are you focusing your time and to start thinking about all of the different things that you have to do in a more focused manner. Let's just start off here. How many hats do you think that you wear in your business? And by hats, I'm really talking about the different kinds of roles that as solopreneurs, we have to take on in our own business. For sure, there's always the role of, let's say, the technician, which is certainly the service provider. There's the role of the photographer, or the role of the designer or whatever you're doing in your business. There's that element of that's the role that I want to play, that I love to play. The whole reason why I'm doing any of the other work whatsoever in my business is because I most want to be a photographer. At least that was how I felt when I first started my photography business. Most of us who are creatives, we just want to do what we love and get paid. We don't really so much want to do some of the other roles that are required to run a successful business. And oftentimes it feels like all of those roles have so many different things, so many different tactics to learn, strategies to learn, tools to learn, that it can feel very overwhelming. I'm here to reassure you that there are really just three main roles in any business. A lot of times, what happens is that these roles get complicated or they get expanded on, but there are only three main roles that you need to think about in your freelance business. Of course, the first one we've already looked at is who are you as the photographer or you as the designer? That technician role. Oftentimes we want to be the photographer, but we don't necessarily want to be the bookkeeper. I have a client who absolutely does not mind being the bookkeeper when he's the guy who's depositing checks. He even doesn't mind being the guy who sends the invoices, but he really doesn't want to be the guy who calls people up and does the accounts receivable and follows up on the payments and does those kinds of things. So it's interesting that we have all these different things that we have to do in our business. And there are definitely pieces that we really don't want to do. Let's look a little bit more closely. That role of the accountant, we could call that the finance manager, the person who has to sort through all the emails and respond to all the different inquiries and unsubscribe from the too many email lists, clean out the inbox and to try to organize all the communications, to do the other admin kind of stuff. Maybe that's the office manager or the admin manager, the person or the role that we play when we're doing our social media, when we're doing our marketing and communications. Maybe that's our marketing or our communications manager hat role. We have a salesperson, all of these sort of middle level roles of anything that involves managing our finance, managing our marketing and communication, managing our sales. Those manager roles are the second level role. There's the I get to do what I love hat that I get to wear, which is the hat of being a photographer. And then there's the manager hat, which can have several different aspects to it. That manager level hat could be a manager of social media, of marketing, of sales. Often that's where we experience the most overwhelm and the most sort of multi-headed feeling of I have to wear so many different hats is because of that management level has lots of different responsibilities and roles that they can play. Let's look at that third hat, the third role in any business. There's the technician role of the photographer, the designer, the manager role that manages most of the operational marketing, finance, that kind of stuff. What is that third role that I keep referencing? That third hat. And that hat, my friend, is the owner hat. So many of us don't even think of ourselves as business owners. Do you think of yourself as a business owner? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. Do you think of yourself as a business owner? And what kinds of things do you do when you're wearing your business owner hat? So, for me, when I think of wearing my business owner hat, this is where I'm going to be doing planning for the business, where I'm going to be doing long term visioning, where I'm going to be considering what market do I want to approach next? Where do I want to expand into? Who do I want to serve? I might start looking at what kinds of services could I start to expand into? What kinds of services or offers or creative projects do I want to start targeting? The ability to plan out where am I going to invest my assets, my resources? As a business owner, we are our own resource, our own asset. Yes, Greg, you do consider yourself an entrepreneur and a business owner. You think of it the same thing. It's interesting that you say that, Greg, because a lot of my clients consider themselves entrepreneurs. Most of them consider themselves freelancers, but some of them consider themselves entrepreneurs. But when I ask them to try on the label of business owner, it seems like it's not the same thing for them. They feel like they don't actually own a business because they don't necessarily have employees or they don't feel like they're running their business like a business. They think they're like winging it. But it's interesting that for you, entrepreneur and business owner are a very similar hat to wear. Entrepreneur business owners often have bigger hats that compass more things. But for any of us in any business, those three roles are the same. Your role as the business owner of doing strategy, visioning, planning, all of those kinds of things, managing the resources of your number one resource is yourself. How are you managing that? How are you managing your time, your energy, your assets, and your mindset? As the manager role, that's where we get really stressed out most of the time because it's where we have to think about a whole bunch of things. It's where we're juggling lots of different pieces. And the manager role is often where we first start doing outsourcing, automating, and delegating. And for all of us, if we want to simplify our business, getting really clear about what is included in each area of our business so that we can start the process of outsourcing, automating, or even eliminating some of those things that don't really serve us and aren't where we're supposed to spend our time. So, the last thing that I've promised in this episode of Coaching for Creatives was to guide you on which of these hats are you going to wear most of the time? Where are you going to invest your time and energy? And for a lot of people, and my coach included, she always says, what are you doing today that's going to generate revenue? And that brings me to where should we be spending most of our time? Which hat should we be wearing most of the time? And I don't should a lot because I don't believe in shooting on people. I really want people to feel empowered to choose and design their own lives. However, my experience is that when we spend most of our time in that owner role, really thinking about our business as a business, being strategic, making plans, thinking about our resources, being intentional about which target markets we're going to pursue, being intentional about the development of the kinds of projects that we're offering, that creates the most success in our lives and our business. Spending as much time as we can in the owner hat, as little time as possible wearing the manager hats, and as much as we can being totally present to the creativity and the amazingness that gets to happen when we get to wear our technician hat and we get to do the photography or do the design work. The idea of only doing work that is immediately generating money, working only on billable work and only on client work, this is not super effective for them because what happens, and this happens a lot for my clients, is that they feel like they have to prioritize client work at the expense of everything else. And what happens is that sets up this huge roller coaster of the gig economy, of where you end up having to hunt in order to eat. It means that you work really hard on your marketing and your social media, and you're doing all this management type activity and management level activity. And then you get the job, you get the project, and you think, awesome, I've got the project. And then you spend all of your time and your focus and your energy just doing the project. And all of a sudden you look up 3 weeks or 4 weeks later or 5 days later, and you haven't done your marketing. You haven't been consistent in generating the next projects. Then you have this huge lull where you don't have any revenue and you don't have any clients. And you think, oh, and hustle, 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 hustle. And then you get another project and you spend all your time focusing on billable works. Yes, ideally, eventually, we create a business where somebody else is doing most of the manager work, where somebody else is spending the time and energy on those things that aren't fulfilling and aren't necessarily the kinds of hats that fit your head specifically. And then I would say you would still want to spend most of your time thinking about the business as the business and doing the technical work as the sort of second priority, unless you can hire somebody to run your business for you. And that is possible. At certain levels, you can hire CEOs, CFOs, directors to come in and do that business part so that you can start focusing more of your time and effort on just billable time and billable projects. So yes, you want to focus where the money is, but you would be surprised at that level of ROI, return on investment, that you can get by focusing on the planning and the development. Largely, this sort of perspective comes from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and his 4 quadrants. It's very similar to the Eisenhower matrix of urgent and important, not urgent, not important, looking at those 4 different evaluation criteria. In Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, he uses the same criteria of important, not important, urgent, not urgent, but makes it really clear that this isn't about do, delegate, decide, and delete. This is really about where you want to be focusing your time to be the most effective and the most productive. And if you can focus your time and energy on planning, you have way less stress. You're not hustling to do things at the last minute. You don't forget to integrate both marketing and service delivery. You are able to create that evening out and a more of a predictable income instead of the crazy roller coaster of that sort of hunt to eat mentality. Hopefully, I have influenced you somewhat to reconsider about where you might be focusing your time and energy.